Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today we're gonna dive into the next mega sampler session. So this is actually one of the last teas I'm going to try. I think I have 5 or 6 left of the 28, and today we're gonna dive into the Gyokuro Karigane. So this tea actually is coming from a Gyokuro, but it is a stem tea. Karigane is known as the high-grade stem tea. Sometimes people refer to it as well as shiraore, but it's nothing more than just a mix of stem and leaves. As you might know, when you look at a tea plant or a tea leaf, there you have the leaf itself, but you also have the stem of the leaf or even the upper parts of the leaves where the stems are included. And when the upper leaves, so normally it's the 3 to 5 leaves which are cut, then also some parts of the stems come with it. With the high-grade green teas, actually these teas are removed, or these tea stems are removed. But with the Karigane, for example, there you have a mix of the stems and the leaves. And this actually comes from also an aesthetic side of the green tea, because when you go back in history, mostly tea was reserved for the upper class, so it has to be a very delicate, very beautiful and very nice thing to look at. And it is considered, as soon as the tea has a little bit of brighter spots and doesn't have this dark green color anymore, it is aesthetic wise not as beautiful. So that's why also the stems are removed. And the farmers themselves, actually, they kept these stems back, and then they drank them as a beautiful tea, because taste-wise, the stem teas, they are very comparable to their higher grade just leaf forms. The main difference is that it has a little bit less of caffeine than its counterpart of the leaves. And we cannot forget, if we talk about the stem tea, there's certainly also some leaf with it, so the nice taste of the leaves come with it. But as I said before, the Karigane is a high-grade green tea in the stem teas area, and this is mainly coming from 2 things. One here, which is specific about Karigane. Karigane is mostly a derivative of high-grade shaded green teas. So Gyokuro, as you already remember, that the name is Gyokuro Karigane. So Karigane mostly comes from Gyokuro. It can also come from Kabuse senchas. These are long shaded green teas, and often these teas, this actually quite simple what is done to these teas at the end of the harvesting period, or just before harvesting, just to be the ultimate days or even weeks for Gyokuro. We can shade them up to 4 weeks. Kabuse sencha, for example, is shaded up to 10 days. So there actually is kind of the magic applied, because what the farmers found out over time, that if they shade the teas just before the harvest, when the young leaves are coming up, then they get sweeter and smoother and also higher in caffeine. On the other hand, what you can actually apply is it depends a little bit on the ratio between stems and leaves. So when you normally go for a kukicha, which is just a stem tea from a sencha, or also you can sometimes have it also from a gyokuro, but mostly it is said that kukicha is sencha and Karigane or shiraore is then coming from Gyokuro or a kabuse, so a longer shaded sencha. And what then the farmer can play around is actually with the amount of stems, and this I wanted to bring you here. So here I prepared, it's also a Gyokuro from Mr. Sakamoto, but here he called this tea kukicha. Then we take the Karigane out of its pack. And you will see a smaller difference. But it's definitely visible. So here we have the Karigane. So you can see the bright spots, which are the stems, and the dark spots, which are actually the tea leaves. But when you take the kukicha, you can see it's a little bit brighter. So the ratio of stems in this tea is actually higher than in this tea. So it means that this tea also has a little bit more of caffeine because the caffeine is situated in the leaves, and the leaves actually carry then the nutrients, or the stems carry the nutrients to the leaves, and the caffeine is actually built in the leaves. So the stems, they definitely bring down the caffeine content. So on the one hand, you can have a little bit more of a stronger flavor profile in direction to the leaves when the amount of the leaves is a little bit higher. This means that the tea is a little bit more sweeter, and there's kind of a slight cereal and a haze note. When you increase the amount of the stems, then actually you got more of this hay, a little bit late summer grass, maybe a little bit kind of this drier grass notes, which you get sometimes a little bit of a cereal note. And this is actually the main difference, and then you have to situate a little bit what personally you like the most. Definitely both teas in this case, they are shaded, coming from Gyokuro, and they tend to be sweeter. When you go into the sencha section, then it can be a little bit more grassy, and it can even be a little bit less sweet, a little bit more dry, a little bit more vegetal in its taste notes. And then definitely the flavor will change as well. And then the more kind of the higher amount of the stems, they can then shift the tea more in kind of a very strong haze note, grass note. Meanwhile, here with both of the tea, we will experience a sweetness with it, but one will drive a little bit more the cereal, this hay note, and the other one will be a little bit smoother. But we want to focus today on the Karigane, and I really want to do it differently today, because normally I use the Kyusu, which is the Japanese teapot with the side handle. Very beautiful to brew the Japanese green tea, but as often showed, I wanted to take today a French press, because it's actually quite a good tool to do your green tea. And as the notes are not so delicate with the Karigane, they're still very smooth, very subtle, very complex, very sweet. But if I want to take a high-grade Gyokuro, then I definitely go for the Kyusu. Here, in this case, I allow myself to have the freedom to use the French press with the Karigane. So I use this 5 grams, which I put here into my French press. And I just want to show it to you in use how easy it actually is to use a French press. So if you don't have a Kyusu at hand, you don't want to buy one, you don't want to have one because of several reasons, or you just have no space, but you already have a French press at home, or you're an avid drinker of coffee and sometimes you want to switch to tea but you don't want to buy the tools for it, then the French press can be very, very good. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave it here for around a minute, a little bit longer than a minute. Gyokuros normally, as they're tightly rolled, you can brew them for around 2 minutes. Here I'm going to leave it to around 1.5 minutes, because the leaves that are used are a little bit smaller, and the stems, they don't need that long of an infusion. So a very, very great tool. We made several videos about it. Maybe I've seen some on Instagram, maybe I've seen some also on TikTok. So this is actually something we are promoting as a very good tool, very simple tool. You don't crush the leaves because it is made for coffee, and coffee normally goes up a little bit higher because you use a little bit more coffee, and expands also more, so you need to press it down. But the leaves, they don't expand that much, so it's just the perfect. So when the French press ends, and you will see it later, actually you will just stop above the leaves, and it will not crush the leaves and press them and bring out the astringent flavor, which will be the case when you press the leaves too much. That's why I personally like it a lot. When you're a person that likes to use a lot of tea, for example, here we have 5 grams, which is the normal amount we recommend, but sometimes you can go up to 10 grams, then maybe a French press might be not the right tool. But if you use that amount of tea and in this high amount, then we definitely suggest you the Kyusu. So then we go into the first, so very simple French press. How to use it is just pushing down the plunger, so that's what I will do now. Just push it down and you will see it stops right there, and you don't really crush the leaf. So you see there's still some nice space, and we can drink a beautiful stem tea. Good. And voila. Gonna pour this in. And now you see I'm not an expert. Maybe coffee drinkers between you are better than I am. So, place the strainer at the wrong side so it will pour out a little bit slower. Yeah, voila. And you see it gives a beautiful glass. You can even use it if you do tea for several people. So you can see here we have taken out more or less all of the water. So perfect. And let's try now. Always when I drink any stem tea, even if it's Karigane, if it's a kukicha coming from Mr. Sakamoto, so Gyokuro kukicha, or it's a kukicha or a shiraore, which is coming from a sencha, there's always this slight cereally note in the beginning. It's kind of a sweet note thanks to the sweet leaves of the Gyokuro, but there's always kind of this cereal hay note. And if you like this kind of a little bit, it's not harsher, but it's not as delicate, sweet and kind of smooth, but it's more a little bit stronger. It goes nearly a little bit in the direction of Rice Krispies, you might say, so a little bit in that direction. So very, very fine cereal note, which is showing itself, but it overtakes a little bit the tea. So it drives the tea definitely in the direction of a more cereal or this hay note. And this is something you really have to like and explore for yourself. I personally like it from time to time, especially like stem teas, more in the afternoon when my palate, when I already had some meals, when I'm already had some flavors, so my palate is not that fine as in the morning anymore. So that's the time when I mostly go either for a hojicha, which is then quite strong, or this is the roasted tea, or I go for a stem tea, or even again matcha, which has just a little bit more this cereally and a little bit this stronger cereally, and maybe easier to find if your palate is not that trained. So it could be quite an interesting tea, and especially when you want to have something which is a little bit lighter in caffeine as well, this tea definitely is a good solution. So this was the first brewing. Now I want to do a second one. So very smooth. Still you get some fruits, so I didn't dive too much into the other notes of the tea. So you get still, when I drink it, I get a little bit of a honey melon, I get a little bit kind of a peachy side as well to it, but definitely kind of this hay note is quite present. But this tea here, thanks to the fact that it is coming from a Gyokuro, so from a shaded tea, sweetness is definitely also something which is quite strong in this tea. So then you just open it up, and voila, and you pour in the second brew. Voila. Also with the second brew, same as with the Kyushu, not a long time, just some seconds, so you can actually put the tap on. This is, I guess, something you cannot do with coffee. Second brewing. Et voila. And we pour out. Good. So again, the leaves not crushed. I can really see when I go up, they really lie there. It's really perfectly done, as if the French press was actually invented for tea. What will happen when you brew the tea over several brewings with the stem teas It's the same as with the gemaicha, that it's the one with the puffed rice. I don't know if you have already drunk it or if you could already experience it. Is a little bit this harsher, a little bit stronger flavor profiles, you might say. So maybe harsh is not the right word, but a little bit this stronger, a little bit more intense flavor profiles, because green tea is delicate by its nature, and it plays a lot around this smooth, this small, sweet, fine notes. And when you brew the tea with the first time, you quite have a strong flavor profile with this one here. And in the second one, you still have this fine flavor profiles which are in the tea, but this stronger kind of this haze, cereally notes, they go down a little bit. So they lose quite fast in its kind of strength, but it's not making the tea in any way unpleasant. It just brings out more the smoother, more the sweeter notes in the second brewing. That's why this tea, in my opinion, is quite interesting also, as you have a stronger change from brewing to brewing. When you're going with a for example, when we have a Fukamushi Sencha and you brew it, first one is very sweet, and then you have a little bit more of these vegetal notes coming in, but the tea in its essence stays quite similar. Here you have quite a stronger change coming from these more cereal notes, a little bit more kind of stronger notes, late summer grass notes, and now in the second brewing we get a lot more of these sweet fruit notes. It's still a lighter tea than the Gyokuro, definitely, but it moves a little bit in the direction of the Gyokuro. You don't have this strong umami flavor which you get from the Gyokuro, so with the tea without the stems. But with this one here, you just get a lot of these sweet notes. I get a lot of peach now. That's the most dominant. It's a little bit of peach with a slight hay note with it. It's quite interesting when you drink it. So you really get a tea which is moving a little bit from this stronger hay note with a sweet undertone going to a more sweet tea with a hay undertone. So you have quite a change in the strength of the notes, and it gets definitely smoother and definitely sweeter. So if I did also a third brewing, I'm quite convinced that the hay notes, even they dim down a little bit more, leaving a little bit more space for the sweet notes. So you get a tea which is moving a little bit from a stronger hay, late summer grass notes into more mellow, sweet fruit notes. So quite interesting in terms of development of sweetness. In general, stem teas are something I personally like. It's definitely a great afternoon tea. It's also a great tea when you have done sports and you come home and you need something which is a little bit smoother. Stem teas, they also carry a little bit more minerals thanks to the fact that the stems are in, and the stems are the carrier of the minerals to the leaves. So it's quite a nutrient rich, quite an interesting tea. And as I said, low caffeinated, so something you can even drink in the late afternoon, or if you're not very sensitive to caffeine, you can drink it in the evening. Maybe I should give you also the content of caffeine in comparison, for example, to a Gyokuro. So you might know Gyokuro is 120 to 140 milligrams, 5 grams when you brew the leaves over 3 steepings. That's a little bit the amount you get when you drink it. Here we are around a third of this, so we're around 40 milligrams, which is around the half of a normal cup of Arabica coffee. That's the one which I'm referring to. So this is what you might know now about the stem teas. I hope you like this one here, and if I missed out on a topic or something you absolutely wanted to know about, then I'm happy to explore this territory of the stem teas further. This was now the deep dive of the Karigane of Mr. Sakamoto. We will have another stem tea waiting for us in these last 5 teas which I am tasting, and there I have the Kokicha from Mr. Osada, and that's a stem tea which is coming from a sencha. So looking up to do that, and hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. See you and bye bye.